Greetings and salutations. Welcome to Hylia's Eulogy. My name is Sharp.
And I'm Flat. Today, we'll be talking about one of our theories, which we believe holds a special story that has never been told.
If you joined us for our last video, you will remember that we discussed the upheaval in The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, and the reasoning for why it was so abrupt and changed so much.
If you didn't go over that theory with us, we invite you to go watch it now. I have a link in the description where you can see it. If you already accompanied us while we explored that theory, allow us to summarize so that the rest of the story makes sense.
In Tears of the Kingdom, the game begins with Zelda and Link descending into the caverns beneath Hyrule Castle. They learn about the Zonai, a race of powerful beings that founded Hyrule, and they awoke Ganondorf, a powerful demon king who shattered Link's sword and sent Zelda careening into the void below. However, before she hits the bottom, she vanishes in a burst of light.
Zelda had picked up a secret stone, which had fallen from Roru's arm when the seal broke, and it had amplified her latent time powers. In a moment of panic, she mistakenly traveled tens of thousands of years into the past, to the time of Hyrule's second founding. She then began altering events in the past, leading to a split in the timeline.
Because of the chaotic nature of the secret stones, the timeline split happened incredibly abruptly, and many of the inhabitants of Hyrule felt the change as a tangible event. The Sheikah technology was replaced with Zonai technology, with almost no evidence of the former ever existing. In addition, the Sky Islands appeared, the inhabitants of Hyrule forgot about the calamity, and several characters didn't age, even though 6 years had allegedly passed between the games.
Additionally, Zelda is no longer in the old timeline, the timeline of Breath of the Wild. To establish a bit of terminology, we will refer to the timeline of Breath of the Wild as the Sheikah timeline, and the timeline of Tears of the Kingdom as the Zonai timeline.
We all know what happens in the Zonai timeline. Link restores power to his arm, awakens the sages, retrieves the Master Sword once Zelda healed it, and uses it to destroy the Demon King and revive Zelda. However, we are never told what happens in the Sheikah timeline, so we are here to theorize how those events might have unfolded.
If you are confused about anything, please go back and watch our video on the timeline split. Also, remember that this is all pure speculation. We don't actually know what happens in the Sheikah timeline. We are simply guessing as to what the most likely unfolding of events would be. Now, please enjoy our presentation on what we think may have happened to the world of Breath of the Wild.
The Zonai technology is not in the Sheikah timeline because the constructs were not created to withstand the test of time as the Guardians were. Once Zelda brought Guardian technology to Mineru in the Zonai timeline, she was able to add it to the constructs to create new machines, which had the ability to persist to the present age. However, since Mineru was never given the Purapad to study in the Sheikah timeline, there would be no constructs either.
The Sky Islands do not exist in the Sheikah timeline because the sages were not alive long enough to raise them into the sky. Think about it. In the Sheikah timeline, Zelda was not there to aid the sages in the imprisoning war. So, Ganondorf very likely could have killed the sages rather than simply defeating them. Roru then would have employed his ability to seal evil away, leading to the prologue of Tears of the Kingdom.
However, the Sheikah timeline does still have one thing: the Sheikah technology. The divine beasts, towers, and shrines would all still exist, along with Robbie's ancient weapons, the Sheikah Slate, and yes, even the Master Cycle Zero, which we know Link has because of the picture in Zelda's house.
Not only was the Sheikah technology still there, Ganondorf would not be able to possess it in the same way that the Calamity was able to.
Think about it. The way that Calamity Ganon corrupted the Guardians was by implanting a piece of itself, a shard of its very essence, into the Guardians. In fact, all of the Calamity's power was made up of pieces of itself, which it employed to extend its will over the world.
However, Ganondorf's power was simply that, a magical ability to manipulate the energy of darkness, which was amplified by his secret stone. Since the Demon King did not possess the power to put a piece of his essence into an object or vessel, neither would he be able to possess the ancient technology.
Once Roru's seal broke, the timeline split, and Link was carried away by the arm. But where would the arm take him, since the Sky Islands had never been raised? Roru would most likely take Link to the Great Plateau, since it's where his castle used to be in the past.
Roru would still replace Link's arm in order to save him, and as Link seeks a way off the Great Plateau, Roru would give Link the 3 runes, which he would probably use to build his way off in return to Greater Hyrule.
Link, knowing that he had to regroup with his allies, likely journeyed to Lookout Landing, investigating the chasms as he went.
You see, the chasms were not a result of the timeline split. Instead, when Ganondorf awoke from his seal, his explosion of power caused the chasms to break open, his gloom surging up through the depths in a massive display of destruction and darkness.
The bosses, too, were summoned by Ganondorf, so each of the 4 races would still be struggling with the regional phenomena. So, once Link told Purah what happened and geared up as best he could, he would be given 3 tasks: find a way to repair the Master Sword, save the races and find a way to activate the Divine Beasts, and find Princess Zelda.
Purah had been studying the Sheikah Slate to try and replicate it, which is how the Purah Pad had been created. But now the Purah Pad was in the Zonai timeline with Zelda, so Purah would probably lend Link the Sheikah Slate, which he would employ to navigate Hyrule and interact with Sheikah technology.
Robbie, at this point, might have an idea. He had been creating the ancient weapons for the sole purpose of destroying evil. So, if Link shows the decayed Master Sword to him and demonstrates the power of the arm to create and combine, Robbie might end up hatching a plan to permanently fuse Guardian technology with the Master Sword in order to harness its power. Unfortunately, neither of them would likely have any idea how to go about doing this, and Link would simply leave the shattered Master Sword with Robbie. That leaves 2 quests on his plate: find Zelda and save Hyrule.
With Roru as his guide, Link would probably find his way to Rito Village first. But before we continue, let's take a moment to talk about why Ganondorf created the bosses.
Consider where each of these beasts are fought in Tears of the Kingdom. Every one of the bosses has wrapped themselves around, covered, or blocked the entrance to the secret stone at the center of the dungeon.
If this is the case, the bosses in the Sheikah timeline wouldn't be in the dungeons of Tears of the Kingdom, since those dungeons did not survive the millennia between the Imprisoning War and Breath of the Wild. So, they would most likely make their home wherever the secret stones of the sages were, guarding them from the new sages that would be chosen to stop Ganondorf.
So, if we want to know where the bosses are in the Sheikah timeline, we must first wonder what happened to the secret stones after the Imprisoning War. Since Ganondorf most likely killed all of the sages, except Roru, we can assume the secret stones were taken by the same people who constructed the purification stones around Ganondorf's seal.
The secret stones were not kept anywhere in Hyrule, or else we would have seen them in Breath of the Wild. So, the most plausible case is that the secret stones may have been hidden in Zonai ruins in the depths, so that they could be kept safe until they were needed again.
The secret stones are not like the constructs. They don't decay or lose power over time. But the places where they were hidden certainly would have crumbled into almost nothing. However, there must have been locations that are important to every race in Hyrule, while simultaneously in the depths, out of the way of the Divine Beasts, and right below every major settlement. The Great Mines.
The secret stones would quite possibly each be hidden in the vaults of their respective mines, with the exception of Mineru's secret stone and the Goron Sage's secret stone, since their dungeons are already in the depths. So, the bosses that Ganondorf summoned all probably went to the ruined mines, transforming them into hives of monsters and gloom, and their effects seeping into the surface above the chasms.
It may be a surprise to some to learn that every single settlement, except the Gerudo, which still has one nearby, has a chasm directly below it after the rise of the Demon King. For the Gorons, it is Death Mountain itself. For the Rito and Zora, there are chasms and caves hidden beneath their settlement, and even the Hylians have the chasm underneath Hyrule Castle. So, through close proximity to the massive holes in the ground, the many peoples of Hyrule would most likely be affected by the regional phenomena just as strongly as they were in Tears of the Kingdom.
So, let's pick up where we left off. With Roru as his guide, Link would probably find his way to Rito Village, which would be in the middle, literally, of a massive snowstorm that they don't know is coming directly from the base of Va Meadow's Perch itself. When Link arrives, he would certainly speak to Tiba and Tulin, and when they share the predicament with Link, he would eventually find his way down to the cave and discover the chasm.
With both of the Rito at his side, they would most likely rappel down into the depths and find the sprawling abandoned Hebra mine. In the middle of the massive battlefield would be Kolgera, who would attack the trio. When Link emerges victorious with Tulin and Tiba's help, they would find the secret stone and receive a vision from the spirit of the Sage of Wind, much like in Tears of the Kingdom.
Hulin would probably still be selected as the new sage and receive the secret stone, giving Link his vow and returning them to the surface with his mastery of the wind.
Kulin would then most likely ascend to the Divine Beast, and with Link's help to activate the terminals, he would then quite possibly become the new champion of Vah Medoh, staying behind to prepare the machine for battle with the Demon King.
Link then would most likely return to Lookout Landing to report to Purah. While there, he would hear that Robbie had moved to the Hateno Ancient Tech Lab, and if he travels to Hateno, he would likely show the inventor how the Secret Stone had amplified Tulin's abilities. Theorizing that the Secret Stones might be the key to combining the Guardian Tech with the Master Sword, Link would probably continue to save the different races and awaken their abilities as sages, as well as reactivating the Divine Beasts for battle.
Link wouldn't just go straight from region to region, however. He most likely would often carve a path into the depths, where he might learn from Roru about the mystical Zonai era, and also probably run into the Yiga clan.
Link would likely find Master Koga in the depths, trying to gather Zonite and create a servant for the Demon King, much like he does in Tears of the Kingdom. However, Link probably would never get the chance to finish off the evil leader, as he escapes every encounter that they have.
And, most importantly, Link would certainly never stop looking for Zelda.
He would probably ask around. He might start to look in every Zonai ruin for a hint that Zelda may have ever been there, but he would find nothing, save for perhaps a few Yiga clan in disguise to trap him. The princess, whom he had gone through so much with, whom he had always sworn to protect, whom he had given his life for, whom perhaps he even loved. She was gone. Maybe forever. All because he had failed to save her when she needed him the most. And this accusation might never leave him alone.
If Link had restored peace to each corner of the map, he would most likely journey to Lookout Landing, and consult Purah, where they might discuss the legends of the Fifth Sage and finding Ganondorf. Suddenly, the Blood Moon would rise, and Phantom Ganon would seize control of Hyrule Castle, much like he does in Tears of the Kingdom. After a fierce battle, Link and the sages would likely confront Ganondorf's image, and speculate on what would happen next.
If Link was left alone, Roru would appear and tell him of Minoru, the Sage of Spirit. After she died at Ganondorf's hands, her spirit would be unable to inhabit a body, or a device like the Purapad, and eventually faded away. With nobody left to claim her secret stone, Roru might guide Link to the Spirit Temple, where he could possibly claim Minoru's stone. The powers of the Zonai relic would probably restore the right arm's ability to use purifying light magic, as well as possibly increase the power of Ascend, Fuse, and Ultra Hand.
Link would then become the Sage of Light, and he would probably return to the surface with his newfound strength. Together with the other sages and the Ghost of Roru, they could then possibly combine Robbie's ancient brace with the Master Sword, drawing out and harnessing the blade's power. However, because of the weakness of the Master Sword, Robbie would most likely theorize that the sword may not survive the final battle, as it would essentially be running on borrowed power. Then, with Purah's knowledge of Sheikah technology, Link might even lead an army of guardians into the depths to search for the Demon King.
Finally, Link would most likely find Master Koga and destroy the construct that he made. The leader of the Yiga clan would then probably reveal Ganondorf's location before he disappears, and Link could then lead the Guardians to Gloom's Reach.
The Demon King's army and the reanimated bosses could be defeated by Link and his own army, and Link would likely be able to get into the inner chamber before he is cut off from all aid, and he would go in alone.
Although Link was likely never able to purge the gloom from his body and acquire any heart containers or stamina vessels, he would still probably fight furiously to save Hyrule. As Link faces off against the menace unleashed, he might even demand Zelda's location from the King of Evil, who would likely claim he does not know where she went. As Ganondorf is certainly beaten back by the hero, he would still most likely swallow his secret stone and undergo draconification, which the secret stone gave him knowledge of, surging up to the surface to destroy Hyrule.
However, as Link is being carried away, he might leave behind the Sheikah Slate, which would then allow the sages to teleport to the Divine Beasts. Taking careful aim, they would most likely blast the Demon Dragon with the full might of the Sheikah's wrath, and Link would be sent hurtling down to Hyrule. However, he would also probably be saved at the last moment by Tiba, who might carry him up to the Demon King's secret stone.
With the Blood Moon raging overhead, Link would slam the Master Sword into the Zonai artifact, destroying the Demon King forever. Link then would most likely land below with the paraglider, wondering what to do next.
With the Demon King gone, Rauru knows that his duty is done, and he would most likely fade away, rejoining Sonia in death. Link would then be left behind, a stranger in his own time, with a green arm, a magical stone, and an army of deadly Sheikah weapons.
Zelda is nowhere in sight, and it might begin to look like Link would never be able to find her. The Master Sword would most likely have been exhausted of its power in the battle, and Link might even watch as his sacred weapon disappears into blue particles that drift away into the breeze, the Guardian tech that had harnessed and drawn out its power falling to the ground.
Link probably stood for a while in the field near Hyrule Castle, wounded, exhausted, weaponless, and without hope. Hyrule looked towards a bright future, but Link might never feel the peace that he had won for its inhabitants.
The kingdom needed a ruler, and all of Hyrule would know it. Thus, they would most likely quickly appoint Link to be the new king of Hyrule, due to his closeness with Zelda. He would probably try to rebuild Hyrule Castle, and he might even use his powers of light to seal away remaining monsters on the surface. He could possibly create new shrines, with blessings of light inside them to restore the vitality of the sick and dying.
After witnessing the fearsome power of the Guardians and the Divine Beasts for a second time, Link could probably only think of the terrors they had wrought in the calamity. As a caution against its further misuse, Link would most likely order every piece of Guardian technology buried beneath the ground, even the Divine Beasts, just as other kings had done before him. The technology would then go into a slumber, and Hyrule would finally be allowed to return to a more normal state.
Hyrule would be saved, by all definitions. But, while in the Zonai timeline, Zelda stood on a sky island beside her friends and looked upon a hopeful kingdom, Link in the Sheikah timeline might be left alone, with a soul forever shrouded in gloom, dedicating a gravestone to Princess Zelda, wherever you are.
Thank you for joining us as we mapped out the darker resolution to the timeline split following the prologue of Tears of the Kingdom. Remember that this is all speculation, but we believe that the Sheikah timeline holds a possible story that should not be overlooked.
Remember to check out our video on the timeline split itself, so that you can have the full context for this theory. As always, feel free to leave a comment if you have any questions, and we'll try to answer them if we can.
Thank you for watching Hylia's Eulogy.
Until we meet again, farewell.